Rocket League is by far one of the most competitive games in the world, with a booming esports scene and millions of active players competing to one-up each other to reach that next rank. Rocket League is the closest possible game to real-life sports like basketball, volleyball, and of course, soccer or football. In this sport, players like Messi and Ronaldo are considered universally to be the best of the best. But what about Rocket League? Who is our Messi or Ronaldo? I mean, there's gotta be someone. One player that has no competition. Who is the psychopath who has dedicated so many hours to the game that they can certifiably be crowned the best of the best? Well, let's talk about it. Now obviously, before we begin, I want to preface everything by saying that these are just my opinions on who I think are the best players. And I'll obviously support my opinions with stats and other factors that I think make them contenders for the best player. And I know, Rocket League is a team game, there is no best player. Shush, okay? Let me be happy and think that there is a best player. This video is essentially just a journey to narrow down the best player in Rocket League. Now, Rocket League has a lot of different ways to differentiate who is truly the best of the best. On the one hand, we have the in-game Rocket League leaderboards, which tells us which players are the highest ranked in the world. As of right now, the top ranked player in the 1v1 rank is Ocala, and Zen and Spider are the top 2v2 and 3v3 players respectively. These players are absolutely insane at the game, with Ocala being a finalist in this spring's RLCS Major, and Zen and Spider each playing on RLCS teams. But does this mean they are certifiably the best players in Rocket League? No, not really. The reason the rank leaderboard isn't really the best indicator of who is the best in the world is because it really just shows who puts in the most hours into ranked game modes. Although these players are absolutely amazing at the game and play literally at the highest level, the leaderboards don't indicate who is the best player in the world because the leaderboards change every single day. And if a player has a bad day or takes a day off, they can easily be overtaken by another player who just went on a win streak. This method also discounts players who don't play ranked as much, such as Justin, who prefers scrimmages and casual much more. Well, how do we find this out then? We're gonna have to look at the pro scene. Looking back in history, it was pretty easy to determine who was the best player in the game. When Rocket League was first released, everyone was generally pretty bad at the game because there really was no other game like it. With games like COD, players who were good in the previous generation were probably gonna be good in the new gen just because of how the mechanics lined up. But with Rocket League, everyone basically drove around the map like they were a newborn deer first learning how to walk. But like driving in a car. Except for a few players. Now, a lot of people might not realize this, but Rocket League is actually the sequel to a previous game called Supersonic Acrobatic Rocket Powered Battle Cars, or SARP BC for short. This game had an incredibly small player base, with only around 10 to 15 games going on at one time at some points. However, there was one player in particular who fell in love with the game and became insanely good. That player was named Kronovi. And with the release of Rocket League, he was already instantly a god at the game. Because he had grinded out the prequel to Rocket League, he was already familiar with the mechanics of the game to a point where he could basically score at will on other players. Kronovi was quickly recognized as the best player in Rocket League by early fans of the game, and he proved it too. At one point, he streamed himself 1v2ing the other two best players in the world and won. Like, he was actually just built different. When the pro scene began to form shortly after its release, Kronovi absolutely dominated everyone. Like, it was kind of unfair. In the first year or so after Rocket League's release, Kronovi won basically everything. Kronovi and his team won 7 out of 8 of the first weekly tournaments hosted in the pro scene, coming second in the one he lost. Eventually, when the first RLCS World Championship rolled around, Kronovi's team iBuyPower steamrolled their way to winning the whole thing. Kronovi was the face of Rocket League, sorta similar to Fortnite's Ninja, but like Ninja, he couldn't stay the best player forever. Other players began to quickly catch up to Kronovi, so the gap between him and other players became smaller and smaller, until eventually, he was just seen as a legend. Now, at one point, Kronovi was for sure seen as the best player in Rocket League, but now that he hasn't really seen the successes he has had previously, it would be unfair to call him the best player as of right now. That means we're gonna have to look elsewhere. One really good way to figure out the true best player in Rocket League is just to look at their accomplishments. Only the best of the best players are able to consistently win against other pro players, and only the most elite are able to win world championships and majors. One player has been so consistent that they have won 4 world championships, the most out of any player in Rocket League. That player is Turbopolsa. Starting off as the substitute on Northern Gaming, when Maestro was unable to play, Turbo ended up being a key player in helping his team win the RLCS World Championship in Season 3. He then won another championship right after that under Gale Force Gaming the very next season, winning the Season 4 MVP. And then, guess what? He did it yet again the very next season under Team Dignitas. 3 back-to-back championships under 3 different teams. Unfortunately, the next season, Turbo lost in the finals to Cloud9. But in Season 8, under NRG, Turbo went again absolutely crazy and helped their team to win yet another RLCS championship, bringing his total to an insane 4 championships. He literally won half of all the championships ever hosted up to that point, and was in 5 of them. He also won that tournament's MVP, and his supportive play helped every single team he played on win a championship. This definitely holds him in contention for one of the best players of all time, but now... well, I mean, he's a substitute now, so... He's still really cracked, but it wouldn't be fair to call him the best player out right now. So, who is the best player in Rocket League now? The answer isn't as clear as it once was, with new players appearing out of nowhere and absolutely stomping the competition every day, it feels like. Rocket League has gotten to a point competitively where anyone and everyone in the pro scene can have a good enough season to be considered the best player in the world. However, with this past season, we now have a little bit better understanding of just who the best player seems to be. Firstkiller is one player many people regard as the best player in Rocket League right now. With his insanely aggressive playstyle backed up by his world-class mechanics, he is an unstoppable force on the field. He is by far the most stat-heavy player in the game right now. Playing with FaZe in this RLCS season, he was first in half of the stats measured, coming in first place in one of the most competitive regions with the most goals per game, most goals scored, most assists per game, and most shots taken. Firstkiller is just so good that FaZe essentially let him pick his own teammates to play with him. He is an unstoppable force on his team, but some say that he is too aggressive. His team performance this season doesn't really reflect the skill that Firstkiller has, with a few lackluster performances in previous tournaments. Can Firstkiller really be considered the best player in the game if his hand-picked all-star team couldn't provide results? Well, let's talk about the MVP of the North American region, Atomic. Atomic won MVP over Firstkiller this season despite having considerably less hard stats to back it up. The reason for this election was because of just how much of an impact Atomic had on his team. Before Atomic joined G2 this season, G2 were a mid-tier esports team with subpar performances compared to where they were previously in RLCS. However, once Atomic was added to the roster, G2 became a powerhouse, toppling teams left and right and winning the Winter Major this season. His impact can't be overstated, with G2 winning 50% of the events they participated in since Atomic joined. His former team, Team Envy, has performed significantly worse since his departure as well, so he is truly a key player in his teams. However, Atomic didn't put up nearly the same stats as Firstkiller, and there's also other regions besides North America that have extremely talented players as well. Vatira is one such player, coming from the other most competitive region, Europe. With 2 other world-class players, Joyo and Rise on Team Queso, Queso got all the way to the Winter Major Finals, losing out only to Atomic's team in the second series. The next major, under Moist Esports with the same team, Vatira won this major, making this the back-to-back finals appearance this season, and winning one of them. It is undeniable the impact Vatira has had on the team, with the general consensus being that Vatira is the most impactful player on the roster. In less than a year, Vatira has gone from playing as a substitute on a low-tier European team to being selected as this season's European MVP. Vatira is widely regarded as the best defensive player in the game right now, and his results back it up. In the EU, he was first in total points and total saves, and he was also selected as the MVP. However, North America and Europe aren't the only regions we have to consider. Yan of South America and TRK511 of the Middle East are also in contention for the best players in the world. Yan is an offensive powerhouse and TRK511 is regarded as the best 1v1 player in the world. These players both won the MVP in their respective regions pretty clearly, but some could argue that their regions are a lot easier comparatively to Europe and North America. So where does that leave us? Firstkiller is a stat monster putting up huge numbers across the board. Atomic is a complete game changer for the team he plays on. Vatira is regarded as the world's best defensive player. And Yan and TRK511 both hold huge mechanical prowess and offensive ability. Is there even really a clear answer to who is truly the best player in Rocket League? Maybe Rocket League has gotten to a point where any player with a high enough skill level and a good enough team can be called the best player at any given time. Maybe there just is no true best player. Nah, that's pretty boring. In my opinion, the best player in Rocket League right now is Vatira of Moist Esports. His ability to save his team out of any situation and his mindfulness to control the game around him makes him better than anyone else in the game right now. He has both shown his skill in game and has proven himself to be the best player on the best team in Rocket League right now, so I don't think anyone can rival that. Obviously, this is just my opinion and you are free to disagree with me, but just know you are wrong and I am right. This could change at any point though, as we have seen how volatile the esports scene is right now. And I think we'll all get a much clearer picture of who is truly the best player in Rocket League at this year's Worlds. Feel free to give your opinions in the comments down below and let me know if I missed anyone. Make sure to like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video, and also, if you yourself want a chance to become the best Rocket League player in the world, all you gotta do is